At some point like a year or a year and a half ago or whenever, I made a video recommending 5 bands that no one's heard of that I'm a big fan of. And I focused on bands that had either broken up or just seemingly disappeared off the face of the earth. I'm going to do again, but this time, instead of focusing on that, I'm just going to pick 5 bands that are so small that, like, no one knows about them just because, like, they aren't signed, they don't have a record deal, they're on Bandcamp, and I found out about them from totally random circumstances. So we're just going to go through here. The first one I want to talk about is Sunshine Faces. This is a very quaint little, like, indie mixed with shoegaze and ambient and pop kind of sound. It's a band that I found on 4chan in a share thread on Mew, and their album Letting You Know, which is the one I particularly am a fan of. It's very short and to the point, and yet it has lots of different sounds in it. It opens with these very ambient, dreamy tracks, this sort of sleepy, sunbathed feeling to it, and then it goes into some pop songs, some more ambient songs, and then like this epic shoegaze song called fuck, what the hell is the name of it? I don't remember, but it's like one of my favorite songs of the year it came out, which was 2 years ago. And it's like 6 minutes long and fucking kick-ass and has this great driving rhythm. It's a good driving song. And there's also like a shoegaze cover of Do the Hustle on there, which is a ton of fun. It's a really great little compact short album with lots of ideas that are explored even within this really tiny, obviously bedroom-produced sound. Like, you can tell this is probably just one guy or maybe a guy and his friend making this, but creating a lot of noise with what they've got. And yeah, and also they're very prolific. There's like a ton of albums on their Bandcamp that come out pretty frequently, so I haven't listened to all of it even myself. There's a few that I was kind of on, a few that I really liked. Letting You Know is the main one that I've listened to a lot. It's great going to bed music, chilling out music. I even sampled part of it, me and Blind Skywatcher did, on, if you've listened to my album Gay and Dead, if you know the song Sad Gay Boy, the main driving ambient sample from that is the first track on Letting You Know. So, you know, if you like that sound, by all means, listen to that album. So next up is a doom metal band called Astolat. This is a band that I discovered because I was on Reddit on like some, I don't know, some music board, and people were just posting up their music, and I clicked on one of the songs and I thought it sounded pretty okay, so I left a comment like, yeah, this sounds pretty cool. And later on they DM'd me like, hey, our album's out now, come check it out. And going by their Bandcamp page, no one but me bought this damn album. But Astolat had an album called, I don't remember the name, but it's a doom metal album with elements of progressive rock. It's kind of a hard sell, I think, because of the fact that a lot of people who are into prog won't find this complex enough or grandiose enough, but people who are into doom metal probably will think it sounds too clean, because it is a very cleanly produced album. It's got the production of prog and the like song structures of doom metal, but it's also got very clear singing, very clear, clean singing from male and female vocals. And personally, I just think it sounds really cool. It's a very distinctive sound that I can't really say I've heard on any other doom metal or prog projects. Like, you can easily see that it's combining those two elements, and yet it feels like nothing from either of those two genres, really. The main focal point of this album is an 8-minute dirge called Atlas's Burden, and I think that's worth coming to the album for in itself. This thing is super short. It's really like 3 main tracks and an intro and an outro. Those 3 main tracks, the first one is The Faceless Mask, which has this more operatic feeling to it. It's sort of telling like a Portrait of Dorian Gray story. I mean, literally it like references the picture of Dorian Gray, but like it's about being like two-faced and stuff like that. And then there's a song called Ocean Nymph, which is a more grandiose aquatic song that sounds kind of ISIS influenced or something. ISIS the band, not ISIS the terrorist organization. ISIS the band, great band, by the way. Very sad about what happened to their name. Anyway, Yeah, it's a really solid little album. Now, unfortunately, Astolat's second album, which was called Aokigahara, named after the Forest of Death below Mount Fuji, I was not nearly as into. They seem to have lost the female singer, and the male singer is not nearly as good as the female singer was. So, you know, because the first album is more like he harmonizes with her, you know, but it's still pretty good stuff. Like, you can tell that it's made by people who weren't working with like a professional producer or studio or anything, but all things considered, they got an incredible sound out of the album in spite of that, and like no one's listened to it. Like, I would really love to see this band be able to grow, because I thought their first album was really solid and has so much potential. I'd love to see them being able to explore that potential further, but you know, it seems like maybe they won't be able to if no one ever fucking listens to them. So check them out if you're into doom metal. Next up, I'm going to tell you about one of my favorite rappers in the whole world. And he doesn't have any full albums out yet, but he's working on some. But probably the most underappreciated musician that I know of, which is Endless Jess, my good friend, fellow YouTuber. He is a extremely prolific YouTuber and producer of music, and almost all of his music is fucking fantastic. It basically falls into several categories or strata. You've got his more jokey improv songs, which are impressive in that they are so improvised and yet they don't sound like it some of the time. If you've heard his song Puppy Dog Boy, for instance, it is completely improvised and there's like a verse in the middle of it that sounds fantastic. And then he's got his more complex, fully written raps, which are extremely dense with wordplay, with language like shenanigans, with crazy flows. He's extremely technical, but also always about something. Lots and lots of references. He's very big on pop culture references and stuff like that, and quotes, and like weaving characters and narratives into his songs. You've heard him if you've listened to my music, because he features on a bunch of my tracks, but like, Jesse is legitimately one of my favorite rappers, and he's written a few of my favorite rap songs. His song The Coolest Guy, which is only on his SoundCloud, I'm probably responsible for half of all the listens on the SoundCloud upload of that song. It's legit one of my favorite rap verses. It's pretty much 4 minutes of one unbroken verse of just goofy, crazy shit, pop culture references and stuff, and like just him on this bizarre adventure through like who he is, and exploring this idea of his character as this like world-destroying hero of justice or something who's also Satan. It's fantastic. He has a Dandy Rhyme, which is a song about Space Dandy, which is fucking great, and I highly recommend it. Now, some of these songs, such as the ones I just named, were written and recorded back before he had a nicer microphone, so the production is kind of dick, but the fucking performance is so solid that you can still enjoy it through that. But if you want the better production, his newer songs, stuff like Lunatic, which is a really fantastic song about just walking around at night and being a night boy in the city and talking to cats, and it's a hell of a lot of fun. He's just got so many fucking good songs. His more recent one, Comfy, which is about like a love song about living in a dank, shitty basement, as he does. You know, a lot of these songs influence some of the stuff that I did on Gay and Dead. So yeah, if you like my raps, you will definitely enjoy Jesse's raps. They're even more like out there than mine, and more goofy and complex and fun, and I recommend them. Go listen to Jesse's music. Next up, staying in the rap realm, but with a much less impressive rapper, though I do enjoy this music, there's this duo named Cool Swim and Pretty Maxim. Cool Swim is a SoundCloud rapper. He's pretty alright. He's got sort of a low, grumbly flow. He sounds a little bit like Earl Sweatshirt or something, though not nearly as technically impressive as Earl. But what really makes him worth listening to is that he works so often with producer Pretty Maxim, who has these really cool, like, dark, beats they're like sparse, almost cloud rap, but not as cloudy as cloud rap, like a darker version of cloud rap. Honestly, the beats remind me of the stuff that my brother Shade makes, and I would love to rap over Pretty Maxim's beats, because I think they're fantastic. But these two make a good combination of just a sort of like early 20s nerd rap ish, but more dark, and I don't know, it's similar to my stuff. Maybe that's why I like it. But they've got a few albums or mixtapes and stuff on SoundCloud and YouTube that someone recommended to me on Twitter randomly one day, and I like it. I dig the stuff. So, you know, they might be worth a look if you're into that kind of sound. And lastly, here's a band that more people have probably heard of than the other ones I've mentioned, but not enough people for how good the music is, which is a progressive rock, progressive metal guy called Toehider. He's a one-man band who has worked with bands like Arion. He performed in the Human Equation live show as the character Rage, who was originally performed by Devin Townsend. I think most people know about him from that. But, like, the album What Kind of Creature Am I, which he put out a few years back, is, I think, the most interesting thing that's happened in prog metal all decade. I think progressive rock is, to me, progressive rock and especially progressive metal has been a very boring and stagnant genre. Like, everything just kind of sounds like Dream Theater or like Yes, you know, like it's all kind of the same, and it's kind of weird to even think of it as progressive when so much of it is just the same shit over and over again. The same 10-minute song, here's a few solos, some complex shit, you know, like Between the Buried and Me, like their newer albums, I mean, all their albums, they just kind of sound like, oh yeah, it's another one. There's another prog metal album. Oh, new Dream Theater. It sounds like every other Dream Theater, you know. I get bored of that shit. Toehider really experiments and breaks the mold, and like no two songs on this album sound anything alike, nor like much of anything I've heard before. The opening track is like almost a Coheed and Cambria style song, but like with these bizarre lyrics where each song he'll tell like a story. The first song is about this guy who gets trapped into a game with this woman who she pulls out a deck of cards and she tells him, all right, each of us draws a card and then we call out the number 5 and you and I both lose but 5 wins, and that's how the game works. And it's like this weird almost Lovecraft thing where he gets like so, his mind is so broken by this game that he becomes obsessed with it and he can't stop playing it for the rest of his life, basically. And like the songs all have like weird stories like that are super inventive and like as cool as something that you would read in like a short story compilation by H.P. Lovecraft or someone like that. Though they're all very goofy with this weird sense of humor to them. And like some of them are like very Queen influenced, which there's like a shout out to his Queen influence on the album. They go in weird directions. There might be a little bit of a djent on one song, and then it'll go into more of like a power pop sound or something. Like it goes all over the place, and not every song on the album is great. I would say the first like 5 are all really great. First 4 or 5, and then there's like a kind of a shit section in the middle. And then the end of the album where he tells the Meet the Sloth, which is like a 13-minute epic that tells this really weird story about a kid meeting a sloth. And I won't spoil any more of it than that. But yeah, the storytelling is really what like brings this album to life and makes it a lot of fun. And I would recommend checking it out. I've listened to a little bit of his other stuff outside that album, didn't like it as much, but I would highly recommend What Kind of Creature Am I, especially if you like prog music and you're bored of it like I am. If you have gotten bored of prog metal because you think it all sounds the same, this guy's doing something different with it, or has done something different with it at least. You know, and he obviously is influenced by all the other prog metal bands, but I just think he's taken it in such a unique direction, and maybe that's why he hasn't gotten as explosively popular, you know, it's just because he's doing something so different. But he kind of, one of the songs on there, The Thing With Me, kind of like is a full dive of his psyche and why he makes music this way, and like, you know, what that's caused and how it hasn't really taken off and stuff like that. And it's a really good song. I know he probably might even watch this video because the dude has like, you know, responded to even tweets about the album, which is how I know he needs more listeners. So yeah, go check it out. Check out all these bands. I like them. There'll be links to all their shit in the description. These are all bands that will have all their stuff on YouTube because they're not signed to a major label, so they're desperately looking for your attention and approval. So, you know, go check it out. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you in the next one.